a TikTok user or influencer.
Yeah.
Scootery Doo, I guess, is at a Carroll County, Maryland school board meeting, and asks a member of Moms for Liberty. You remember this? They have been waging a jihad, if you will, against wokeness.
Yeah.
In schools.
The other term for them is canned Karenhood.
Yeah, the canned Karenhood. And they have been running, like, they are going after wokeness in all its forms. They don't want this taught to our children. They are protecting the kids. And so TikTok user Scootery Doo asks this Moms for Liberty member, Kit Hart, a simple question which should be answered with no problem.
Hi, I'm Alexa. Maybe you saw me outside or on Fox News, or maybe I teach your kid. My question is very simple. What does woke mean? Yes, I am a TikTok lady. Okay. What does woke mean?
Woke is rooted in Marxism, and what it means is that society is based in pitting people against one another, and basically giving somebody labels. So, as I'm sure you know what it means that it comes from a Marxist, and what it does is it tries to inspire a revolution, and by creating a problem and telling people that they're either the oppressor or the oppressed, they're wrong or they're right for behaving or acting a certain way. So
I'd say a person is right or wrong for acting or behaving a certain way.
Well, I mean, or for basically for just who they are, characteristics that are determined by their birth. And what it means at its root is it's being awakened by a critical consciousness.
Oh, somebody just hit.
Critical is the key word there. And
pause it for 1 second. Okay, this is awesome because somebody, go back a little bit. She is stumbling around, obviously Marxist roots, labels. It gives people labels. And it's supposed to inspire a revolution.
It's saying it's good or bad if you behave in certain ways.
It's good or bad if you behave in certain ways. And then, like, somebody either Googled it on their phone and put it in front of her, or she was able to do it. So you can just watch this moment. And this is when she goes into, it is for critical, and she starts to read something, but she doesn't know what that she's reading means. And this is just so fantastic.
Or for basically for just who they are, characteristics that are determined by their birth.
So she's looking down, reading. See,
what it means at its root is it's being awakened by a critical consciousness. And so critical is the key word there, and critical basically gets. Sorry that I'm trying to work this out in my mind, but it basically gets to the root of creating a divide between people.
pause it. Yeah. Critical in this case means creating a divide. Now, let me say this. I think this video is unfair in how much it's pointing out her ahs and ums.
Yeah.
I think we should allow that to slide. That is way below the belt. But everything else is fantastic. If you're gonna listen, as someone who uses the ahs and ums, and it's part of my speech, what should follow it should actually mean something. Not critical means creating a divide type of thing. All right, go ahead.
Basically gets, sorry that I'm trying to work this out in my mind, but it basically gets
Person taking the video laughs.
Of creating a divide between people.
Okay, so ultimately it's the division that is wokeness, applying labels that divide. And I'm not quite clear on the connection to Marxism, but
I didn't use the term woke in my remarks. So,
I mean, well, you are here representing that has it on your stickers, on your folders, and everybody is here representing the parental power summit. And so that word is attached to everybody on this panel.
No, I don't. I'll refer you back to the previous conversation.
That was great. Congratulations to Scootery Doo. I mean, this is so vacuous. Wokeness, they don't even know what it means.
I love her point at the end there saying, well, the organization that you're all like marching alongside does know what it means. And and they all run away from it. Like, well, I don't.
Well, because they can't say it in public.
Right.
Because it is a euphemism for them. They know what wokeness means when they say it with each other. Black people.
And N-word lovers.
N-word lovers.
It's just Confederates.
The gays.
This is, again, it's just Planned Parenthood. This
Exactly.
is the Daughters of the Confederacy.
This is the way that we talk. It's our euphemism. We're not allowed to actually say the word out. You know, everybody knows what it means. We don't need to say it. Fantastic. Let's go to the IMs. Calling from a 937 area code. We may have time for one or two more calls. Maybe one. Yeah, one or two. 937. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Did it work? Wait. Why isn't... I'm having trouble with this computer now. Hold on. What the heck? Let me see if I can get it here. But 937 seems to be gone now. Sorry about that. 843, calling from an 843 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Sam.
Yes.
Hey, how are you? It's Anthony from Los Angeles. How are you?
Good. Anthony from Los Angeles. What's on your mind?
A long-time caller, or excuse me, long-time listener. So just a quick background. I gave up listening to Daily Wire for a year, and I turned to your channel instead.
To listen to what for a year? Oh,
I
Daily
quit
Wire.
listening to the Daily Wire.
Okay.
Ben Shapiro and those guys, obviously. Well, it turns out I'm much more resolved in my beliefs, and I just had one quick question. So you've been speaking out a lot against Israel and how they're colonial settlers. Would you guys in New York be willing to give back your plot of land or anything you guys own to the Native Americans?
Well, I mean, I think I would believe certainly in reparations, without a doubt. And I think to a certain extent, look, I think we have to reckon with the colonial settler past of this country, with no doubt. And
no, but you specifically, would you, just you yourself?
Would I myself?
As individuals?
Yes, give reparations.
Well, I don't
You
think
need to
that
listen
any
more.
individual Israeli should do this either.
Okay. But but here in America, if we live in this colonial settler state, would you lead the charge in giving back some of your land, some of the...
Well, I
things
certainly
you
listen.
profit
I
off
mean,
of?
if you've listened to the show for an extended period of time, I mean, you've definitely heard us talk about proposals. I would certainly give all the national parks over to Native Americans as part reparations. And I think that nobody's necessarily suggesting that every bit of Israel but be given to Palestinians. But certainly, I would start with everything post 67 borders returned to Palestinians.
Yeah, land
and
back
then
isn't about Europeans going back to Europe.
And then I would look for reparations, some mix of reparations involved in a right of return and reparations for lands that were taken beyond the mandate. But I also think
Are you
that,
talking about here in America or here in Israel?
I'm talking about in Israel.
Got it.
And I certainly would be for, having for Israel to become a single democratic state where all of its citizens had equal rights. I am sort of agnostic on whether that or a two-state solution that if the Palestinian people had sovereignty, actual sovereignty, decided to sign off on. That's not, for me to decide. But certainly, I think, look.
Do you advocate for the two-state solution for Israel?
Either a two-state solution or a one-state solution.
I haven't heard explicitly from your side what you advocate.
Well, I think that, look, for a long time, the two-state solution has been offered as a way of basically a stalling tactic. And over the course of, I think it's really just a stalling tactic.
Red herring, yeah.
And to distract people from the ongoing, over the past couple of decades, creation of settlements, contrary to UN resolutions and contrary even, I think, to U.S. Policy as well, if not statute. And so
do you think the biggest? I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I said, do you think the biggest shortfall in the two-state solution is just a clear-cut line between cultural and moral values? Because I've heard Emma, especially, say this is a racist. It's a skin color thing. But if you've ever been to that part of the world, it's hard to distinguish between a Jewish and a Muslim and a Palestinian person. They virtually have the same skin color. So I don't know.
I'll tell you, I have been to that part of the world. I have been to that part of the world. And one of the ways that you can tell the difference from a lot of them, if you cross into the West Bank, is that one is occupied by people with guns who don't allow the freedom of movement. And they figure it out.
Yeah, but how is that? Yep, go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting again. Go ahead.
Well, they know. I mean, look.
Yeah, but how is that racism, though? How is that racism?
Are you aware of how? Are you aware of how Irish people were treated when they came to this country? Are you aware of the history of this country? No, but
race is a political
It
construct.
was racism. No Irish, no Italians. You should do some studying on this, because if you don't understand how people who have the
Sam, I'm very aware people have been mistreated all the time.
No, not mistreated. They were mistreated because they were Irish. It wasn't because of their nationality. They didn't like their flag. They didn't like their form of government. They perceived them as being less than what at that time was considered white people. Irish people, Italian people, when they first came to this country, were not considered white. If you don't understand this dynamic, you need to do more work on it. You need to research it more.
No, I agree with that, but I just
okay. So wait a second. Explain to me now. Now explain to me.
Israelis.
Explain to me your question. How is it that Irish people in the 1910s could be perceived as less than white, but today no one would ever make that comment? And now apply that question. How is it that that dynamic could have existed and you not understand that Israelis who sometimes have a similar complexion? I mean, I have spent a lot of time with some Ethiopian Jews.
But would you argue that? Of course, and it's nothing against either.
They're also incidentally subjected to a tremendous amount of racism in Israel.
Oh, no, of course.
But
would you understand?
You're saying how could racism exist?
Instead of defaulting to racism,
it's not a default.
Maybe it's culturally.
No, it's not a default. It's not a default.
It's not culture.
It's not a default.
It's a structure. And again, like you put your finger on it, it's the same culture that created a lot of race hatred here, which is there's a settler population and there's an indigenous population to be dispossessed.
It's not a default. It's the actual reality of it. I mean, and if you don't understand how racism could exist, hold on. Let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If you don't understand how racism can exist when some Israelis look like some Palestinians, but you do understand how racism could exist in the 1910s between some white Americans and some Irish immigrants, let's say, you understand that that's racism, right? No Irish need apply. It's not because you're full of leprechauns or whatever it is, or you like to wear green. It's racism. Right. If you could understand that racism, why are you having such trouble understanding the idea that the Palestinians are treated the way they are, at the very least, in part because of racism?
I would say it's there's some sort of cultural deficit that is preventing Israel.
Do you think that there is a cultural deficit between a Russian Jew and an Israeli Jew?
A cultural difference between a Russian Jew and an Israeli Jew? Oh, of course.
Okay. Now, why is it that all of those over 1 million Russian emigres who came into that country, they have full rights and Palestinians do not?
Because I would venture, and again, you've been to this part of the world more than I have. I would assume, and based on my previous work history and things that I've known, that Muslims and Jews typically don't get along. It's been that way for thousands of years.
No, actually, that's not been. In fact, you say thousands of years. First off, how old do you think Islam is?
632 is when Muhammad was born.
So you're saying that over the past of those 1,500 years.
Or 655, whatever, 1,500 years.
Okay, 1,500 years has always been a problem between Jews and Muslims. What about Christians?
Okay, so was the Protestants versus Catholics and Irish, was that a racial or a religious?
That was imperial again, colonial.
But you still haven't answered my question about the cultural differences between Russian immigrants.
Yes, it led to racism. Colonial structures lead to racism.
You still haven't answered my question about cultural. The cultural difference between Russian immigrants. Like, why do they show up and they have rights and Palestinians don't?
They probably interact more freely and sociably with the.
Why do you think they're able to do that? Because they are given full citizenship rights.
Well, hold on. Are Russian immigrants advocating for the death of all Jews?
You're saying that all Palestinians advocate for the death of all Jews?
No, I'm not saying all. I'm saying a majority of them do.
You're saying the majority of them do?
The kids are taught in schools.
Dude, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about.
Are you saying?
I'm saying definitively
advocate for the death of Jews?
No, the Palestinians do not call for the death of all Jews. I've known many people who have had many Jews who have a lot.
So the propaganda taught in schools depicting Jews as rats and termites and stuff like this is all just a.
You should see what they're saying about Palestinians too. I don't know if you've seen any of these videos. Let me tell you.
Well, I remember 2011 very, very vividly that Palestinians were celebrating the death of the.
And the Algerians didn't think much of the French. Again, this is a product of a colonial relationship. There's nothing mystified about this. You're confused because you don't understand what race is. You think it's a biological reality when it's actually a political construct, and we've been wasting 20 minutes on this now.
I guess the definition of racism, you think you're racist to other.
Say again?
Hello?
What's your definition of racism? Say again.
Did I lose you guys?
What is the definition?
Did I lose you guys?
I think so. All right. Well, we appreciate the phone call.
Hello?
Bye-bye.
I think maybe 6 more months of Majority Report.
I think so. I think you need another 6 more months of the program. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.